Welcome to the Power Curve. I'm Holly Scott. In our podcast, I have the pleasure of chatting with accomplished industry executives regarding decisions they've made along their career path with the idea of empowering you, our audience, as you navigate your own career trajectory. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Nina Goodheart, the Senior VP and President of Structural Heart and the Aortic Business at Medtronic. Nina, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
And I know Tom said Tom Salimi is a very good friend, and he said the same thing, but you definitely have the best name in the industry, okay? We've given others best titles, but your name, it certainly works.
I did have a physician once who asked me if I just made it up, but I actually married into it, so I can't even take credit.
Oh, well, there you go. So it was strategic. So you looked for the man with the right last name, right?
Absolutely. I'll go with that.
You'll go with that. Well, that's great. Well, I appreciate you spending time with us today. Obviously, you've done some tremendous work at Medtronic, and I'm excited to hear more about it. I'm a firm believer, though, career starts early. Career starts earlier than any of us think about it in school or in or first jobs or the like. It really starts back with your foundation. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and what career meant in your household?
Yeah, both of my parents, super smart individuals, neither of them had the opportunity to go to college. And I think because of that, education was incredibly important to them. And it was a huge focus for me and my brothers growing up. My dad was what we would consider self-made. He started his own business, but they came from pretty humble beginnings, and they really wanted to make sure that we got a solid education because they thought that that would lead to what they considered would be stability. Um, they didn't want us to struggle as much as they did. My dad took some risks in his career, and I think he infused that in me, the ability to get out of a comfort zone. Uh, but a strong focus on education, a strong focus on having a solid career, but also a really strong focus on not getting too comfortable and being able and willing to take some risks as you move forward.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Did you grow up in Philadelphia?
I did, and I grew up in New York.
Okay.
Uh, and so I'm a true New Yorker by birth and by heart.
Okay. Did your siblings get into the industry by chance? Are they in healthcare or MedTech?
Nope, neither of them did. Both of my children, two of my three children, I would say, my two kids, and I have a son-in-law. My daughter and son-in-law are both physicians.
Ah, excellent, excellent. So they learned quite a bit
They
from.
came into the family work, I guess.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go. So as you were growing up, was there a point in time that you remember having interest drawn to healthcare? Because I noticed your education wasn't healthcare related. So I'm just curious on when this came your way, how you laid the foundation and eventually got into Medtronic.
Yeah, so I didn't study healthcare. It was not really in my sights early on. I went to Northwestern. I studied journalism, and I think what I really learned from that was the ability to really dig into something, to uncover issues, to really focus on answers and dig into those answers. My entry into healthcare came a little bit later. I started my career after college at a New York advertising agency, primarily in packaged goods, working on baby products and retail, et cetera. And from there, what I really learned was marketing, right? How to market deeply, how to create markets, how to create differentiated brand platforms in a variety of markets. And I propelled that as I moved into healthcare. So one of my first roles was working on DTC in big pharma. I moved from there to doing strategy work in big pharma, and then got the opportunity to come to Medtronic. I came in as a consultant, or I thought I was coming in as a consultant, and I walked out with a job offer. And Medtronic is such an amazing company, could not say no to that. And I've been here almost 18 years now.
Oh my goodness. So you started as a consulting. What was the nature of the consultancy that you thought you were coming in under?
It was really to do market development in our CRM business, our cardiac rhythm business, really the flagship of Medtronic. And they were looking at how to expand markets, how to penetrate into new markets, which was something I had done in my consulting background. And as we started to talk about that, I think it became clear that I could probably do that better from the inside than from the outside. But I remember coming home and saying to my husband, I think I just took a job at Medtronic. And he said, I thought you were going in to consult. I said, I was. But it's been the way I've run my career, right? When an opportunity like that presents itself, you have to say yes. And I did.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that's fascinating. So at the time, did you realize that you were going to arguably the world's most successful medical device company?
Well, I had done my homework as I thought I was going to do some consulting. And so, of course, Medtronic, incredibly impressive, this wide array of technologies that it offers patients. So, was really excited to be a part of that. And then when I had the ability and the opportunity to come in and do it from the inside out and work with probably the most amazing people in the industry, it was just an opportunity I absolutely could not say no to.
So that was really interesting because your education was different. You had gotten into market development in a very dynamically different industry and ended up being so strong at it that you were consulting and then introduced to consult with Medtronic and the cardiac rhythm management function, which at the time was not nearly as mature, and there was a lot going on. It's a pretty sophisticated product segment.
Without question.
That must have been that must have been quite a challenge.
I learned fast, right? And I think that's one of the things that you need to do in these businesses and in these roles. But I also think, Holly, it also shows that not every path is linear. And
Mhm.
I talk about that all the time, right? And so we come at these roles and into these businesses from all with all different experiences, all of which start to add up to allow us to lead these businesses in ways that maybe aren't quite as traditional and bring different thought processes, different experiences, and different perspectives into these businesses, which is what I think I've been able to do at Medtronic.
That's excellent. So, at what point did you transition then from that division and then take on more broad cardiovascular responsibility?
Yeah, I've had this incredible career at Medtronic where I've been able to continue to build areas of responsibility, but also to continue to learn because I've worked across multiple businesses. So, from the market development role that I came into at Medtronic, I then ran global marketing for that same division, and then had this great opportunity to go and run a brand new hypertension acquisition that Medtronic had just made. And because I had had pharmaceutical experience, I had had hypertension experience. It was a really great way to marry so many of the skills that I had to be able to do that. So I was able to do that for a number of years. I then ran our diagnostics business, our patient monitoring business, and then had the opportunity again to take on additional responsibility running structural heart and now structural heart and aortic. And I think all of those combined experiences continue to allow me to lead in a very different way because I've been able to parlay all of that into the role I have now.
Hmm. It's fascinating. And to get that kind of cross dynamic responsibility across the industry, that's a huge advantage for someone from a learning challenge and brings you a diverse bag of skills and tools to go on to your next venture.
Exactly right.
Nina, do they have were you part of a structured mentorship program or was it more of an informal thing where you sought out mentors? How did you develop the relationships that allowed you to move in these various levels?
I think it's a combination of all of that. So we have had some structured mentoring programs, and I was very privileged to be a part of some of those. But a lot of it was, and everyone can do this, it's developing and cultivating mentors along the way, right? So it's those people who are thought partners for you, those people who are sponsors for you, those people who talk about you when you're not in the room, when opportunities come up, right? And they bring you along with them as they go. And so I worked hard to cultivate those so that when opportunities came forward, I was a part of those conversations. And I've worked also really hard to cultivate that for other people, right? So, we have to be, I think, humble enough to understand that we give and get. Nobody on these leadership journeys does this all by themselves, right? And so when a hand is extended to you, you take it, and then you make sure that you're extending a hand to somebody else as you go forward.
Hmm. Fantastic. And that way of thought and that attribute can be carried on from wherever you are in your career in terms of growth and development. I see C-suite leaders who are constantly developing mentors in the board, or individuals still in college that are developing their first mentor. So that's something that never stop learning, never stop networking and developing this band of contacts and individuals who you advocate for, and they in turn advocate for you.
Right. And I think it's that networking, because the question I get asked all the time, Holly, is, well, how do you do that? Right. And I think it's really being open, being willing to give somebody a call. You met them in the hallway, you had a conversation, you saw them at a forum or a congress or a conference, um, and reaching out. I have never reached out to somebody who didn't answer me back. I've never had anyone reach out to me where I haven't answered them back. Sometimes it's a long relationship, sometimes it's a short relationship to answer a specific question, but you start to build that network of mentors and sponsors that, at least for me, I've used throughout my whole career.
Fascinating. So you're in New York. Did you move at all for Medtronic? Did you move it for any of your opportunities?
I have not. And so I live outside of Philadelphia. My husband and I did a corporate relocation for his role quite a long time ago. But we had made the decision early on that we just were going to try not to do another corporate relocation. And so I became one of the very first commuting executives for Medtronic well before the pandemic, when people were working remotely. So I was home based outside of Philadelphia, but I was in Minneapolis, which is where my office at Medtronic was based, every week for the entirety, really, of my career. So you have to be willing to do that if you're going to do this kind of a remote role.
And there's sacrifices on both sides. I see individuals where they are willing to pack up and move and do so many times, and that's a sacrifice. However, those who choose not to and commit to travel every week, that's not easy.
Different kind of sacrifice. But I think you have to think about what's right for your family.
That's right.
You have to think about what's right for the role and the business that you're going into. Mm-hmm. And you have to find a way to make that work, both for yourself and for the business. This is what worked for me. It wouldn't necessarily work for everybody.
Yeah. No, and it sounds like you had a supportive leadership team, and you built a team that
yes.
could facilitate optimization in this structure.
I think that's exactly right. And part of that is building really strong teams and empowering really strong teams to work alongside of you. Mm-hmm. Again, because of the talent that we have at Medtronic, was able to do that in all of the roles that I had.
Yeah, I'd love to push into that a little bit further, because here you are now at Medtronic. At some point in your career, you started getting tapped on the shoulder for leadership positions. And that's an attribute to you and your hard work. I'd like to hear more about it, because I know when you're in an organization like that, everyone around you is basically excellent. Yeah. So you're looking to stand out among those who already stand out, because they've got an opportunity at one of the most successful organizations in the world.
Right.
How did you get your first leadership role? How did that happen?
So I came into Medtronic as a vice president of market development. I came in, I think, with a critically important core capability and skill that I had developed in roles prior to my coming into the Medtronic organization. And I think what people have to do is you really have to cultivate something that you are really, really good at, a capability that stands out from your peers, and then be willing to build on that, right? So I came in with a really strong knowledge of how to create markets, how to penetrate markets, how to develop markets, how to expand into new markets. And every role that I've had has had some need to be able to do that. While I was in those roles, I then learned, how do you work with clinical, and how do you work with R&D and manufacturing and operations and regulatory affairs, et cetera. So I've continued to build on those core capabilities so I could parlay those into every role that I took of increasing responsibility. But the key things I learned across all of those roles is, how do you develop people? because no matter how good you are, in my opinion, you're only going to go so far as if you can continue to develop a really strong team to work with you. And the most amazing thing is when you develop a team and then you see them thrive. You see them getting new roles and new areas of increasing responsibility and knowing that you're a part of their leadership journey as well.
Yeah, you're making a great point too, because I'm sure you've seen this in your career, and I've certainly seen it. There are individuals who have an incredible gift, body of knowledge, skill, expertise. They're subject matter experts, yet they're not the best when it comes to leading people or working with people or bringing out the best in individuals. Was that something that you learned over time? Was that a skill that you came to Medtronic with, or how did you fuel that? Because I understand that to be one of your greatest assets now.
Well, thank you for that. And I think a lot about leadership, and how do you think about that, especially in a large organization like Medtronic. And so there are some things that have been very important to me on this leadership journey, if you will. The first, I think, is recognizing that leadership is not ever about the leader. It's really about the people that you're leading. And if you focus on yourself as a leader, I don't think you're ever going to be as successful as when you focus on the team that you're trying to lead. I think it's about setting a vision, and it's about inspiring people to come along on that journey with you. It's about being, as you talked about, authentic and transparent, and having people know that you're true to your own purpose and that you want them to be true to their purpose as well. I focus a lot on making sure that everyone feels seen and feels heard, and that they know that their voice matters in whatever the conversation is that we're having. And it's about building a culture. It's about building a culture for us of execution and of excellence, but also again of authenticity and transparency. And so I think a lot about all of that, as I lead these large teams now within Medtronic.
Mm. Yeah, and as I shared even before the camera was rolling, there's something about you that I can feel your authenticity, and I can only imagine how that would be at scale and how market development would be a natural core competency for you if you can see it, and then you can actually incite action around it, developing a market, developing people, developing a particular idea. Those are that's really an interesting area to. I'd consider it both a gift and a skill that you've curated over time.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. It's critically important to me. People are important to me. What we do at Medtronic is important to me. You know, we've had this 60-year-old mission of really focusing on patients and patient care. And I think everybody has to feel that. And as the leader of an organization, I think it's incumbent on you to believe it and then to be able to share it, because you need people, coming along on this journey, this incredibly important journey that we have of improving patients' lives and improving their access to healthcare.
Yeah, that's tremendous. In your role now, you touch many people as a leader, and I'm sure there's individuals that are up and coming that you touch every day. If you were to offer advice to the younger generation, right, those 20 somethings either coming out of college or trying to figure it out, are there lessons that you would like to share to that next generation?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things. One is, as we were talking about earlier, look for mentors. Look for them early in your career. They may be peers, right? If you're just starting out, it may be the people that you're working with that you can build some thought partnership with. And then looking at the leaders that you respect and trying to build a network of mentorship and sponsorship with those people. I think it's about being ready to take calculated risks. Don't get too comfortable in doing what you're doing. Think ahead. Think about what it is that you want to be doing. Um, I talk to people a lot about focus on the impact that you want to have. Don't worry about the title. Don't worry about the salary. All those things will come. What do you want to be doing? What do you care about? What's the fire inside of you that burns that you want to share? Those are the things that you really should be focused on, I think, especially early in your career. And again, for people early in their career, be clear about what you're looking for and articulate that. Nobody's a mind reader. Let people know what you want to do, the kinds of experiences that you want to have, so that people can actually help you get get there. They can't help you if you don't tell them what you want.
Mm. Communication is
Oh,
150% key.
right?
And yeah, it's interesting because, going back to your journalism roots, and as you know, I'm a parent and I also talk with young people all the time. Communication, written and verbal, and the ability and willingness to speak and ask and engage is something that if we don't watch it, it's a lost art. There was a tremendous push towards STEM from the 80s to now, and I love that. We love creators. We love people who want to build and make and change the world. However, we can't have that in a silo. In order to really build out the cultural depth and build out sustainability, we have to engage and communicate with each other. And it starts with having tough conversations, telling people what's on your mind, asking them how they're doing today. No, those little things go a long way. It really goes a long way. So speaking out, young and you're not expected to know exactly where you're going to end up, right? You said it clearly. There's no career path that's as linear as we expect it to be.
Right.
There are curves and changes and such, but communication is so key in trying to figure out where to go, asking for help when you need it, asking for advice, and also sharing what's on your mind and sometimes just discussing it helps you create your own path and figure out where you're headed next.
I think that's right. And I think what I learned in journalism school is how to tell a story, right? And that is true whether you're marketing a product, whether you're creating a personal brand for yourself. How do you clearly, concisely, and articulately tell a story? And I think that, to your point, if we don't help people with that, they're going to lose that. We're
Yeah,
going to lose that.
100%. I couldn't
Yeah.
agree more. Couldn't agree more. And from the outside, especially when people are in positions like yours, it looks perfect. It looks like you did that effortlessly. It looks like the world just is your best friend. I know that's not true. I know that there are many challenges along the way. Have you been in a position where you were thrown a curveball and as a leader it really shook you up and perhaps you learned from it? I'd be curious on anything you'd be willing to share there.
Many times, right? So to your point, when you put it on paper, even when I look at my career on paper, it looks perfect, right? It looks like I planned it from start to finish. And as we've talked about, there are many twists and turns along the way. And I think you learn the most from things that are hard, right? From the curveballs that you get, the challenges that you get. And so when I think about those, of course, a couple come to mind. The first one is probably the biggest one we all faced, which was the COVID-19 pandemic. None of us knew how we were going to operate in that. And I think what we quickly learned within Medtronic, what I quickly learned within my business were a couple of things: that we could pivot quickly and that we needed to do that. We needed to think about, first and foremost, how to keep our employees safe in an unknown environment. But we also knew that we needed to send our people into COVID-filled hospitals, right? We had sales reps who went into hospitals every single day from the start of the pandemic all the way through. And I've said this many times, when so many of us were hunkered down at home, wiping down our packages with Clorox wipes, we were asking our teams to go in and treat and work with our physicians to help to treat patients. And so the biggest curveball, I think, for all of us came through: how do you think through a massive change like that? How do you work with your teams? How do you rework everything that you do in order to make sure we could create products, we could get products to customers, and that we could assist our physicians in helping them treat patients? And just our ability to pivot so quickly and to do the right thing was very impactful for me.
Sounds like that'll be with you for the rest of your career, if not beyond, right?
I think that's exactly right, and I think it's true for all of us. And then I think about things that are I don't want to say more common, but happen in our industry, right? And so about 2 years or so ago, we had a valve product called Harmony for our congenital patients. That valve had won breakthrough designation. We were very, very excited about it. Physicians were extremely excited about it. It had the opportunity to really provide benefit to a large number of both pediatric and adult patients. Early on, we started to get some reports that the handle of that device was not working exactly the way we designed it. The valve was fine, the implants were fine, but the handle was not operating appropriately. And so we made the decision very early on to recall that product because we believe that if we're going to design a product, it has to work exactly the way we say it's going to work. So we voluntarily recalled that. We did all of the remediation work. We worked with FDA, and then we quickly got that product back on the market in the way it's supposed to work. But I think about that a lot. I started early saying that every decision that we make has impact on a patient. And while this had no safety impact, it still had impact. And so when I think about, as a leader, how do you make sure you do the right thing each and every time? We took a look at this product. We realized we could do better. We took it back. We remediated it. We put it back on the market. It's now working beautifully. And the physician feedback and the customer patient feedback we're getting is remarkable. But I think it's just a lesson that we've got to watch for those early signals. We've got to do what we know is right. We've got to fix things quickly. And then we need to move on.
I always envisioned that being one of the most challenging positions to have in a large organization, a large medical device company, when you have a recall. In your case was voluntary. There are others that are not voluntary. And having to, of course, stay true to the right thing. And that's what we have to do. There's a whole world of stakeholders around this product, service, getting to market, being in the right hands. That must be a 24/7 endeavor for a number of days, weeks, months. As I look from the outside, is that the case?
That's absolutely the case. We work very, very quickly to gather as much information as we possibly can, but we make decisions without 100% information as you do, every single day.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, it's the hardest decision we make. In some ways, it's pretty easy. At the end of the day, we look at these products and I ask my team all the time, would you put this in your mother? Would you use this for your sister? Is this a product that you would want your child to have if they have this condition? And if the answer is yes, I would do this for my own family member, we feel fairly confident assuming the data backs that up.
Mm-hmm.
When the answer is no, then it's a quick decision to take it off in order to remediate. And we've got such an incredible team of engineers who are able to take these back, get feedback from customers, work with regulatory agencies around the world, and get them, for the most part, back on the market as they're intended to be used.
Wow, what an exciting time, challenging time, and a time you must sit back and say, "Wow, I learned so much and so many lessons to take with you in the unintended future of where you may have to navigate something again that's similar." Those are the tools you have in your toolbox moving forward.
I think that's exactly right. But at the end of the day, still, when I think about Medtronic and I think about the technologies and the therapies that we bring to market all over the world, and the patients who are positively impacted, the lives that get improved, and it's not just the life of that patient, it's the life of an entire family that changes because of the work that we do. It is so incredibly motivating. It is so incredibly gratifying. And when I look at my team and I ask them to work extra hours, to wake up really early, to fly all over the world, to meet with customers all over the world, everybody does it so willingly because they absolutely know that there is a patient somewhere in the world who's going to feel better tomorrow or the next day or the next day because of the work that they're doing. And I can't think of anything better to be able to do with your working life than to know that you've had that kind of a positive impact on people. It's amazing.
And as you know, I'm one of those families. My son is 16 and doing tremendously well thanks to Medtronic's valve.
So thrilled to hear that.
He's doing great, and he is actually a big fan of MedTech and big fan of the industry. So
Good.
he'll be making his impact in his time for sure. But yeah, these when you're in the middle of these decisions and they involve your family, there's one thing that I've learned is that all the things that I thought I knew from being in the industry so long really fall to the wayside because you become completely ignorant when you feel so helpless over that person. So having someone there who understands the technology as much as the doctor and as much as the nurse practitioner, whoever you're working with, that's incredibly valuable. And understanding the impact and knowing the tremendous results these products get. Man, is that encouraging. And even beyond, look, the structural market, I think it's fascinating anyway. You started going from the cardiac rhythm side, and your roots in Medtronic were really when structural was getting interesting. So you're really kind of you've ascended with structural, and now of course the adult population is enormous, and the pediatric to adult population is growing. So we've got a lot of opportunity ahead. What are you most excited about, Nina, as you sit in the seat you are with what you're seeing going on in new therapies?
Well, to your point, when I look at the structural heart space in particular, we have accomplished so much, and there's so much more that we still have the opportunity to do. So, to your point about patients with congenital heart disease, as you're referencing about your son, right? We just put a brand new valve on the market, and that is just creating incredible benefit both for pediatric and for adult patients. Very excited about the fact that because patients do so well when they're young, they now grow into adulthood, and we have more opportunity to bring new markets to be able to treat those patients. We have really strong products in our aortic, our TAVR market, our aortic market. And then I think about what's coming with being able to treat mitral disease and now being able then to treat tricuspid disease. We've got years and years and years of therapy development that we'll be able to bring to fruition and then bring to patients. And that, to me, is probably the most exciting thing that we do, is to be able to bring new technologies where they don't yet exist. And I think that's what Medtronic has been so good at.
Oh, they've been tremendous at it. And the understanding of the clinical workflow, the surgical experience, the entire, whether it be a cath lab or an OR or a hybrid model, because Medtronic has such a strong understanding and foothold of it, it just simply makes sense that they're going to continue to offer these solutions and continue to look for opportunities to make things better and better.
Well, if you think about the beginnings of Medtronic 60 plus years ago, when Earl Buchan, the founder of Medtronic, started, it was really working with a physician to address an unmet need that a patient had. That, in that case, it was for the first pacemaker. We've kept that philosophy going for the next 65 plus years in every space that we're in. It is really working with physicians around the world to understand what they need to treat patients, and then coming back with this incredible engineering knowledge, clinical knowledge, research and development knowledge, bringing all of that together to be able to create therapies that meet those needs, and then being able to support them with clinical data so physicians understand the benefits of these technologies so that they can help the patients that they treat. It's been a remarkable journey, and we're still on it because there's so much more that we can do.
It's exciting. It is exciting. There's so much going on. And that's a great part about a company like Medtronic, is they never have shied away from the tough stuff. You know, the products and services that Medtronic is involved with is the most complex of complex when it comes to treating chronic disease, treating life-threatening disease. It's really astounding. And wow. Well, Nina, I so appreciate you being with us today. I will add that I caught your LinkedIn feed today, and I've got my next reading assignment. I added to Audible the Lessons in Chemistry book because that looked pretty interesting. Are you enjoying it? Okay.
I just finished it, and it is this amazing combination of science and women in leadership all coming together. It was a great read.
Sounds like something I'm going to love. So I have to do the Audible because I can't keep my eyes open at night long enough to read. So, but I commute in and I love it. So that's great. I love the recommendation.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for joining today, Nina. I really appreciate it.
Holly, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
And for all of you joining us on the Power Curve, thank you. And I'm Holly Scott.